So you then
I'm
I
going to
figured out.
start. So with me today, I have Dr. Chris Zaino, and some of you may have already heard of his story, but I want to share just the story of healing. A lot of us know specifically that God heals, but just the journey that Chris took and what's happened along this journey, and not only bringing him closer to just knowing truth, but also undergoing this so that then he can then help millions of people that he's helped, not only through his story, through his practice, but even doctors that are now sharing his testimony across the world. And thank you for being with us, Dr. Chris.
Thank you, Dr. Rosie.
And so I think that the biggest thing I want to hear from you, and not only sharing your story, but we are really trying to just anchor to the truth of that God made us to heal, and He put an amazing just power within us. But knowing and trusting that, sometimes even going through a struggle, just the lies that we start believing because of the world out there telling us that we can't heal. Just talk about, just where you've been, what brought you to even chiropractic and this principle of healing, and how it just has anchored you even more to God's truth.
Right. So what I'll do, Dr. Rosie, I'll kind of tell you my story, but then in my story, I'll kind of step to the side and kind of go over some real life principles that I learned through that process, so people don't have to make that mistake. And so everybody listening, watching, reading will come up with tactical things to do as well, and things they have to face because, So let me do that, and you'll see how I'll do it. Okay. Ready? All right, good. So back in 1998, I won Mr. America. So I say that. I want to start off there because, I looked a certain way. I felt a certain way. I was on the cover of magazines. And I trained, if you guys remember the show Zaino, Warrior Princess, and Hercules. Well, I lived in Orlando, Florida, had my degree in exercise physiology. And when I got that title, Mr. America, with that type of degree and that title, you could train celebrities, you could train people on shows. So I really had a great job. I was 21, 21 when I won Mr. America, 22 when I was just really having the career of my dreams, training celebrities, writing for magazines. The internet's coming up, so I'm writing there. So I was a writer, and it was wonderful. And at that time, I had my philosophy of what health is that it's how you looked or felt, like many people reading and watching this, right? Most people think it's how they look or how they feel. And so if I'm on that, if that's my philosophy, then my daily habits are all according to how I look or how I feel to determine that I was healthy. So I prided myself on health because I looked good, I felt good. I made nutrition plans and exercise plans for people. So, I did all those things. And then a couple years later, about 4 years later, I found myself having digestive issues. Well, they were always kind of there, but now it was really ramping up. And I ate right, I exercised, I was doing all the right things, but these just got worse and worse and worse. And then I started bleeding every time I went to the bathroom. Now I'm starting to bleed. Now I'm getting nervous. And I do what a lot of people do. I played Google Doctor. Does anybody ever, you ever play Google MD? So I went on Google and I typed in blood and stool. And the first thing that popped up was cancer. And now my background is my dad died in 1999 of cancer. My grandfather died in 1975, a year before I was even born. So again, I also believe that, your health, like cancer, heart disease, was in your genes. So therefore, I'm thinking, well, it might be on my dad's, the male side of the family, but I didn't think it would happen now. But I was facing that truth that, wow, it could be happening right now. Because I did not know about epigenetics. I did not know that you could actually control your surroundings and you could control your environment by how you take care of yourself. And so I'm frustrated because here it's like these issues are going on. I'm shaking my fist at God, thinking like, why is this happening to me? Because let's face it, I wasn't lining up at McDonald's every morning or Starbucks every morning or Burger King every morning or Sonic every morning. Like, here, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I'm not doing any drugs or recreational drugs. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? Like, all these people are smoking, drinking, eating fast food, and they're doing so much better than I am. Right. So it's very frustrating. It's very easy to see how things are unfair. And it's easy to do that when you don't know the cause of the problem and you start pointing at the circumstances. So you start becoming a victim or becoming hopeless. So I started on that journey, and then I did something that was very ignorant, and it's called disassociation. And a lot of times, and I will definitely say in the Christian world, I've seen this one too many times, you have a problem and you turn your face away from it. You don't do anything about it. And that's probably the most unintelligent thing you could do, or you try to pray it away without action behind it. And so I looked the other way, thinking it would go away, and it didn't, because a law was being broken. There was some cause to the problem I was not addressing. There was a blind spot, but I didn't know, because I thought I knew everything, right? I thought I knew I was eating right, exercising, and it got worse and worse and worse. And then I started, my entire day started being rearranged by this physical condition I'm having. So when you have a disease or a sickness, you start seeing things and going through life very differently, such as I would stop eating at 10 a.m. because all the food would go through me if I had to be somewhere. Or everywhere I went, I would have to make sure there was a bathroom. So your life starts to slowly get boxed in. Your freedom starts getting taken away. And then even though I wasn't doing anything, I didn't tell anybody. And then it got to the point where one day I was at a TJ Maxx and I did my routine. I would go into a place, look for the bathrooms, and the bathrooms were locked. They were under construction. I said to one of the workers, "Hey, where's the bathroom?" And they're like, "Well, it's under construction. Go outside. There's a Sports Authority next door." And I realized that when you have a physical issue, an illness, you cannot separate the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. I had this physical illness that was causing me emotional stress and anxiety, and it was breaking my spirit. And so did the anxiety of the what if and the fear if I don't have a bathroom that actually made matters worse. So as I'm trying to leave this department store, in front of like 40 people that were there, I lost my bowels in public. And that was probably, talk about, rock bottom. That was probably the most depressive, disgusting line in the sand, deepest, darkest, disgusted moment I had. Because in that moment, I realized this, I was on cover of magazines a year ago. I was, a top trainer. I trained, so like my entire identity, that's a keyword, my entire identity was absolutely ripped and stripped away from me. And here I'm, I lost all this weight. I'm bleeding every time we go to the bathroom. I have this problem that's not going away. And here I am now losing my bowels in public. And you know what? Most of you can lose your bowels in public and get away with it, but not when it's blood and mucus. And you see the horrific looks on people's faces because it's shocking. I'm sure none of you saw someone, defecate blood out of themselves in a department store. So, but at the same time, they try to empathize. It was just a bad situation. And I ran out of the loading dock. And that was the day I went to the hospital. And at the hospital, I was diagnosed with an incurable terminal disease called ulcerative colitis. So what that is it's an autoimmune disease where my own immune system is attacking itself, or the digestive system, the digestive tract, ulcerating it, being eaten alive from the inside out. And they put me on drugs like prednisone and anti-inflammatory drugs and all these other medications. The drugs were so harsh that I got medically induced hepatitis. So now I'm being treated for colitis, for hepatitis. I'm addicted to Xanax and Valium because these are the drugs I needed to take to go to sleep. And I continue to get worse and worse and worse. Then I'm in Dallas, Texas, Baylor Medical. I got switched over there, and we have 3 or 4 of the best doctors in the world for digestive disease. And now I'm on a low-dose chemotherapy, Remicade infusions for the autoimmune disease, interferon medication for the medically induced hepatitis, and organ rejection medication to permanently lower my immune system at a DNA level. And that's a problem. Now I have to wear a mask everywhere I go. So nothing's working. I went from 230 pounds all the way down to 158 pounds in about 3.5 to 4 months. And everything, like I said, everything I ever known, my entire identity was stripped away. Nothing was working. And now the only option I was given, and these were really good doctors. They truly did their best. Their protocol, their system wasn't working. They said, listen, our drugs, the course isn't working here. So your only option now is we're going to set you up for surgery in a week and a half, and we're going to remove your entire colon. You will have a colostomy bag out of a right gaping hole out of your right side of your abdomen, and that'll be $2,000 worth a month. That will get infected. It will break. It will leak. You'll be on $6,000 worth of medication total every single month for the rest of your life. They went on to say that we're worried that you might not get through the surgery because you're on all these immunosuppressants. So we know after the surgery, there will be some type of infection or sepsis. So now that puts you in ICU for months, if not maybe up to a year. They went on to say that I was sterile. I'd never be able to have kids either. And adoption, if anything, will be in my future. And they were just worried that I would even get through the surgery. And so when you're given this list, when you're given this prognosis, when you're given this is the way your future is going to be, I don't care how positive you are, how much you pray, it doesn't feel good. And it's very scary. It's very depressing. Creates anger, but then your anger turns into apathy, because anger at least is a little bit of power. But now when you can't be angry anymore, you just become apathetic, indifferent. You lost everything. You're hopeless. And so my mom now, let's check out my mom. So I go home to see my mom, and she's in Sarasota, Florida. And at this point, my mom already lost 2 sons. So she had 2 sons that died, one from a freak accident, one from a drug overdose. And so this is her 3rd son who's dying. Plus she lost her husband. So your health affects everybody else as well, and brings everybody with you as well. If you don't take care of your health, everybody comes with you. And so she sends out a prayer email, like all good moms would do. They send out this prayer email, and everybody's blessing the doctor's hands. Hope the surgery goes well. Pray that God's hands are controlling the scalpel. And one person sent back a different email. It was my anatomy teacher from 10th grade, Mr. Bauman. He says, hey, when Chris comes into town, I want to see him. And so when I flew into town, there's Mr. Bauman. He's like, I need you to go see my doctor. He's a corrective care chiropractor. He's going to see what's going on. He'll look at your spine and see what's going on, and he'll take care of it. He said it very nonchalantly. And it's very tough, because when someone has faith, or they know something that you don't know, and it's easy for them, sometimes it comes off as nonchalant and unbelievable. And so when I heard it, I'm like, okay, I just was in a $1 billion facility. I'm $220,000 in debt. I've had the best test in the world done. And if these doctors can't help me, there's nothing that could help me. So I'm like, hey, listen, and you expect me to go to some guy who has a chiropractic office out of his house? I'm like, how is some massage therapy? Because I thought chiropractic was just like a massage therapy. How's that going to help a terminal disease? And then I said the number, I said the line that changed my life. I looked at him, I said, thank you so much for trying to help me. I go, but I've tried everything. And when I said that, I didn't realize, because he immediately came back to me and he says, listen, he goes, you didn't try everything, because if you tried everything, you would have had your health. And in that moment, I didn't realize I became a victim. See, if you're reading this or watching this, you understand that you can become hopeless and become a victim and not even realize it. The fact that I thought, and I had the audacity to think that I tried everything. Because if you believe you tried everything, then you feel there's nothing else that's hopeful. And he was right. If I tried everything, I would have had my health. And that goes in any area of your life, your finances, your relationships, your health, your businesses. And I'm like, wow, he's right. So it woke me up, and it cracked the door open slightly, where I would at least give other options a chance. And so I went to see this chiropractor. And he set me down. He talked to me in very basic laws of life. I could not dispute it. That, the nervous system controls every part of the body. True. Cut off your head, you die. True, right? Like very basic terminology. This is how the body works. True. But then we took pictures of my spine that no one ever took pictures of. And then when I went back and looked at the x-rays of my spine, I saw my spine was very damaged in the lower back area, the lower spine area. Now, I never felt lower back pain. So I'm looking at this damage in my lower spine that even as lean as I was, no one would see this. I didn't see this. You don't see your spine every day. And I'm looking at my lower spine. It's all damaged. I looked at a blind spot. See, it's never the things that you know about that get you. It's always the things that you did not know about. And I looked at, there was what they called a 20-degree subluxation in the spine. It was a 20-degree curvature in my spine, and it can't be more than 0 to 2 degrees off. Mine was 20. And then there's this first bone underneath your skull that protects your brainstem, and I had 50% pressure on that brainstem that controls the autonomic process, or all the areas of your body you don't have to think about. So I had a lot of damage going on in my nervous system that I never thought about. So you can't exercise it out. You can't eat it out. It's like there was a discipline, there was a blind spot that I wasn't aware of. But that wasn't enough for me. I looked at him, I'm like, well, that's great. I'm like, how to get there? And the doctor looks at me, he's like, what do you mean how it got there? He's like, if you were dying of thirst in the desert, you wouldn't ask how you got thirsty. You would ask what? I'm like, well, how do I fix it? And so he told me how he'd fix the spine. He corrected like braces, correcting teeth. We removed the interference of the spinal cord and nervous system, and those organs will heal as they were created to heal. I'm like, okay, when am I going to get better? Right? Because now you want to know when, you want to put a date on it. When am I going to have my miracle? When's this going to be better? And a lot of times we do that, don't we? We come up with a magical number that we think by this date, things should be better. And really, that idea that we make up in our head is rooted in nothing. It's a guess. So I was trying to say, well, by this date, if I'm not better by this date, then it didn't work. And we start to judge our life and our results by a false date that we put on something that we really don't have control over. And he looked at me, and this is really the reason why I chose this route. He goes, listen, as long as you have that damage in your nervous system, your body will never be in the environment to be able to heal itself as it once did. And then he points at me. He goes, but when you correct your problem that you have that's affecting your life and your future, then your body will be in the environment to be able to heal itself. And then he says this, he's like, the day and the hour, he's like, that's not up to me, because that's between you, your body, and God. He's like, but you will get better as long as you don't quit on yourself, no matter how long it takes. And that was the most honest answer anybody gave me, because I was filled with all this false hope. Once we do this drug or that drug or this drug, once we remove your colon, like I've been given there, and it was just all false hope. But this was a very honest answer that truly put all the work and all the responsibility back upon me. And I'm like, he's right. And I took ownership over it. And so we started correcting the spine. I started doing chiropractic care. And I wish I could tell everybody that in 1 week it was a miracle and the blood had stopped. No, it wasn't. I could tell you 3 months went by and I was still bleeding. And I was seeing blood still every day. And it's really tough when you're seeing the manifestation of the thing you don't want. But in 3 months, I was off half the drugs, avoiding surgery. 5 months later, I was off all the drugs. And then 7 months later, the blood stopped. So in 7 months, my body healed itself from an incurable terminal disease called ulcerative colitis. And that was about, as we're doing this, probably about 16, 17 years ago. And when we look back at it, looking back at the last 17 years of my life, I went back to school because now I had a purpose. See, when you get advice from someone, book smarts don't mean anything. Experience means everything. You want to know someone who had an experience, because that's truth. Stories are stories in a book. So you want someone with experience. So I had this experience now. So with this experience, I have a purpose that I could share the story with people. So went back to school, got my doctorate in chiropractic. We built one of the largest clinics in the history of the world, seeing thousands and helping thousands of people a week. I traveled all the world, spoke on many, many, many stages, spoke this message thousands of times, and helped, really hundreds of thousands of years were added to hundreds of thousands of lives. But more than that, I'm healthy, I'm whole. I have 2 beautiful boys that I was never supposed to have. I have 2 sons. And let me explain something. When you get your health back, you might be thinking, I just want to get my health back. But you have no idea of the compound of blessings that continues to happen when you have your health. Here it is. I was happy to get my health back. Little did I know I'd have 2 amazing sons. Little did I know I'd be able to build a massive health practice to help hundreds of thousands of people and help other doctors. You have no idea that when you have your health, it opens up the opportunity to do so much more in your life. It really is a hero's journey that takes a lot of work. Now, looking back, the reason every time I tell my testimony, it scares me. So I'm scared right now, and I'll tell you why. Because there was a moment in my life where I had to make a decision. I had to. It wasn't about me going home and praying about it. That's procrastination, and that's trying to put the responsibility that God gave you back to Him, which is not taking charge. So there was no praying about it. It was just, I had to make a decision. And one of the toughest things in your life is to make a decision, because you're scared you're going to make the wrong decision. And when you're scared to make the wrong decision, you procrastinate. And if you procrastinate, you will miss out on your opportunity. I believe that, and I almost did. So I made a decision 16 or 17 years ago. And because of that one decision, my life split into two parallel dimensions. If I made the decision to do surgery, I would have been sick right now, dead right now. I would have been, if I was alive, I'm sure my social media account would have said Chris Zaino, colitis survivor, meaning that my identity would have been in my disease. I would have worn my disease as my identity and the cards that God gave me in life. And I would have been a very godly victim, which served no purpose on this planet, but just to, say, hey, in his strength, I will survive. I would have believed a false lie, and I would have been a victim or most likely dead and broke and under sick medical debt and no children. Just think of all the things that would have been vanished if I made a decision to go towards surgery. But because I made the decision to listen to the truth and listen to my own intuition, and then literally say, hey, I'm going to make this decision and I'm going to burn the boats and go forward with this. I can't even add up the blessings, not just the health blessings and the family blessings and the business blessings and the financial blessings and the time, the amazing opportunities that happened because I had my health back. But it all came, so when someone says, hey, aren't you glad that God sent you Mr. Bauman? Aren't you glad that, God put you in front of a chiropractor to save your life? And the answer to that is Mr. Bauman and the chiropractor, they didn't save my life. I did. I made the decision. And I'll tell you why, because there's plenty of amazing people that tell you the truth. And you look at that truth, you listen to that truth, and you throw that truth away. And you keep on going and living in fear, in resentment, in victimhood, because sometimes being the victim, that becomes your status and that becomes your significance. And you keep on doing the same thing when here the truth was right in front of you, but you're scared to make a decision. God gave you and I the strength to make a decision. And once you make that decision, then the resources come. Then you have the time. Then you have the money. Just think of all the reasons why someone doesn't take care of their health. Time, money. Well, my doctor said this. It's all excuses to procrastinate. So listen to your intuition. It felt right. I knew it in my heart that this was the way to go. Also, I knew that the way I was going wasn't working and it was insanity. And I realized, and I do believe, yes, that not only did God create your body to heal, function, operate, but we've been distracted since we were very young. Meaning, everybody could agree, like we started from 2 cells, and in 9 months there was a beautiful baby, right? So we all could agree that there's an amazing intelligence, a wisdom. It's not even a religious statement. No one can deny there's an intelligence, not random. So there's a miracle. There's amazing wisdom in there. And then at 9 months, when we were born, where did all that intelligence go that made every single cell and organ in your body? So where did the masterpiece go? Right? And people start to, when I teach people that, I see they get confused. And I said, okay, well, we'll break it down. So when we look at a baby, we call the baby or pregnancy what? The miracle of, and everybody's like, the miracle of life. I'm like, okay, that's correct. So when you were born, where did all that intelligence and that miracle go? Did it come out with the placenta? And everybody realizes, no, it didn't. So where is it? And then people realize it's still with them. And I'm like, and what's the difference if you call a baby a miracle of life? What's the difference between you and a baby? And then people they have that confused look again, and they realize there's no difference. You're just a bigger baby. And so I proved my point to say this. When was the day that society, and it could be teachers and preachers and dogmas and belief system, when was the day that you were distracted from the truth that you were always the miracle the entire time? And that same wisdom, that same healing, that same power, that same master intelligence and master builder that built every single organ of your body didn't leave you. It's always been with you. And here we look to man, and we look everywhere. We look all over the world for the answer, but yet it's underneath your skull the entire time. The whole entire time, the answer, the intelligence, and really the source of your health was right behind your eyeballs. And we fail to realize that. And that's the truth. But I know it's tough because we were raised a certain way. But really, my talk is all about, my testimony really all comes to making a decision. And whatever decision you choose, you're loved, you're supportive, and I'm sure everybody loves you. But you understand there's a consequence to every decision you make. And you either could work with God's design and work with the intelligence that God gave the body to heal, function, operate, and work with that design, or you choose to work against it. And it really all comes down to us making that decision and living life the way we want it to. And just looking back, I could just tell you that if you do your part and you take care of your body the way God intended to, you'll be able to pursue health and happiness and the abundant life you're always created to have. Any questions, Rosie?